All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 TV show in the world. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today, I'm going to be showing you my entire John Jakes book collection. We've got them over here. 3 glorious rows of John Jakes products. And let's get to it. John Jakes is one of the greatest historical fiction novelists ever. And he got his start writing fantasy and science fiction. So we're going to go through all of the books I have of his and in a little bit of detail. Keep in mind, some of the old sci-fi and fantasy books that he wrote, he wrote dozens of them, and they're just hard to find nowadays. I don't have all of them, but I'm going to show you what few that I do have. They're down here on the bottom, and then we'll start moving up into more of his historical fiction, which is really where he got famous, was with his Kent Family Chronicles, his North and South trilogy. These things sold zillions of copies. But let's start when John Jakes was just a young writer back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s when he did his fantasy and science fiction stuff. And he loved Conan the Barbarian, and he wanted to write Conan-type books, which is what he did. So, and some sci-fi and some old westerns too. So I've got a little bit of both, but these are the books that I got that he wrote when I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I got 12 of about the 40 novels he wrote in his younger years. So let's go over them in a little bit of detail. I do happen to have his entire Brack the Barbarian series. This is, like I said, this is where he wanted to write novels similar to Robert E. Howard when he was a young man. And he started with Brack the Barbarian, and it's basically his version of the Conan story, and but just with Brack. And there's 5 of them. 5 of them that came out. The first one was just simply titled Brack the Barbarian. The second one was Brack the Barbarian versus the Mark of the Demons. And a lot of these were illustrated by Frank Frazetta, too, who also illustrated all of the Conan books. So Brack the Barbarian versus the Sorceress. Brack the Barbarian, When the Idols Walked. And Brack the Barbarian, The Fortunes of Brack. So that is his 5 Brack the Barbarian books. We've got those. And then we'll look at some of his standalone science fiction and fantasy stuff. The 6-Gun Planet with the great looking cover. This is from the 1960s or so. He wrote Where the Stars Die. That's a pretty cool looking cover. An even cooler cover, The Planet Wizard. That's another Frank Frazetta piece. His collection of short stories, and The Secrets of Stardeep. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't read any of these. That's why I didn't really give much of a description of them. I've had these in my collection for some time, just haven't gotten to reading them yet. But we will eventually read them and leave reviews on the channel. Let's talk about some of his old westerns. So this one, and I also have not read this, Wear a Fast Gun. That looks like a good book. I can't wait to get to it, though. Well, I've had it for a while, and I haven't got to it yet. I guess I can wait. And I have waited. But we will hustle the process along here, and we'll read this one or get a review up soon. Looks like a good gunslinging western. And then this is another western in the big country. This looks like it's probably a collection of his short stories. Have not read that either. Now let's talk about the stuff that I have read that I do love. Some of this I've read multiple times. So let's start with one of my other favorite westerns that he did, which was California Gold. This is a big, huge, epic western, like a big Lonesome Dove style, epic, long western. I mean, it's a good 600-700 pages of absolute great, and it's about the California Gold Rush. You might have figured that out from the title. A great book. I've got the hardcover here and the paperback. And then we shall talk about his North and South trilogy, which I've got over here. I've got them in first edition hardcovers. I've got the paperback versions, and I've got this DVD set, and we'll look at all of this here too. So let's start with the paperback versions of North and South. Of course, the first book is North and South. This is a 3-book trilogy just about the beginning of the Civil War, the middle of the Civil War, and the aftermath of the Civil War. So North and South is 1,200 pages, glorious pages of just everything that led up to the Civil War. Love and War it's a bigger book, and it is specifically about the Civil War itself. And it chronicles several different families, the Ories and the Maine. The families that it chronicles are the Ories and the Maines. No, the Hazards and the Maines. Ori is one of the main characters. The Hazards and the Maines are who chronicles a family on the south side of the war and the north side of the war throughout the Civil War. North and South is the beginning of the Civil War, the middle of this is the Civil War, and then Heaven and Hell chronicles the aftermaths of the Civil War and what the two families had to deal with. Again, great. If you want to learn everything you can possibly know about the Civil War in an action-packed, fun-filled, dramatic series of novels, this is better than any history book you're ever going to read, because this puts you right in the action of everything I talked about. Pre-Civil War, mid-Civil War, aftermath of Civil War, through the eyes of two families, one from the South, one from the North, and these families are close together. They are friends, which is what makes this unique. Is a lot of people that fought in the Civil War were actually relatives and cousins of each other and friends of each other, and they were battling against each other, and this does a good job of chronicling that. Now, I also have up here some of my prized possessions. I've got the first edition hardcovers of the same trilogy. Absolutely look gorgeous on the and there's some great author photos on the back too. Each one has a different author photo. And that's not all, folks. That is not all. If you don't want to read the books, you can watch the gazillion episode miniseries called North and South, starring Patrick Swayze as Ori Maine. And it's got a lot of old stars. There's a ton of movie stars in this. A ton of old movie stars and TV stars. Just so many that I can't even name them all. But this is a great miniseries that follows the story really close. It follows these books really close with just one major change, and I won't tell you what that major change is because it would be a spoiler for the books. But the major change that they made for the miniseries makes complete sense. Because Patrick Swayze was the star of the show, and, well, anyway, that's all I'm going to say. So if you want to watch this, I don't know how many episodes it is, but it is, I mean, you will learn as much from this miniseries about the Civil War as you can just reading the books. I mean, it's an absolute dynamite miniseries, filmed in the early 1980s, and so it does seem a little dated, but anyway, now let's talk about John Jake's magnum opus, which is his Kent Family Chronicles series of 8 books. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books. The Kent Family Chronicles. This series chronicles the Kent family from the year 1700 all the way up to the year 1900. So 200 years worth of epic family drama as we see this Kent family go through immigrate to America, go through the Revolutionary War, all the other wars leading to the Civil War, all the way up to 1900. Through the Old West as they expand into the Old West. It's just great. I've got all the mass market paperbacks right there. They look real dope on the shelf. And I've got all of the hardcovers right there. They also look super dope. Starts with the Bastard, then the Titans, then the Furies, then the Seekers, the Rebels, the Warriors, the Lawless, and the Americans. Those are great titles. Should tell you everything you need to know about this series. One of my favorite novelists, and I've got a good portion of his books. Like I said, I probably have about half of his books. The collection could and should probably be bigger. It's just a lot of these old ones that he wrote in the 50s and 60s are super hard to get now, especially in good condition. And I only buy books that are in mint condition. I don't buy fucked over books out of used bookstores. Unless they're in mint condition, then I know they haven't been fucked over. Otherwise, this is it. Some of his more modern books that I do not have are his Charleston and So he wrote a history of this town of Charleston and Havana, Georgia. And he wrote one on Newport, Rhode Island, which I read. Didn't really care for, so it's not in my collection. And about a handful of other modern books that I don't have of his. He's got one about the Secret Service. I have not got that one. That sounds interesting. Maybe I'll get that one day. And I don't have a lot of... So anyway, it's a decent collection, not a perfect collection, but I hope you enjoyed me showing you what I do have. And if it inspired you to read any of these, then great.